Jim Lebenthal, Delta variant's causing a slowdown. It's undeniable. The real question is, how long does it last? You're Mr. All In, and you told me yesterday you were starting to get nervous. Are you more nervous today or not?
Yep. I'm the same level. I mean, the retail sales number really should not have been a surprise after the consumer sentiment number on Friday. So what I was trying to say yesterday, and I'm going to be consistent today, is that I'm not being blasé. I'm not being casual about the Delta variant. What my belief is, and it's based on the Anthony Fauci's and Scott Gottlieb's of the world, is that this Delta variant will peak sometime in mid-September, maybe late September, and then tail off. The key element here is vaccines, and hopefully the resurgence of COVID-19 is going to continue to provoke people to get the vaccines. But that's the big difference between where we were a year ago when we didn't have vaccines. And so my nervousness then would have been more pronounced and might have had me take some chips off the table. It's my pretty strong belief that vaccines are a cure for this. It's my equally strong belief that the Delta spike does kind of slow the Fed down a little bit. I know we spoke yesterday about them starting to turn towards tapering at the end of the year, but I think they've got to look at this Delta variant. They've got to look at retail sales. They've got to look at consumer sentiment and say, whoa, Nelly, let's just wait this thing out a little bit longer and see how it goes.
So, Josh,
so when you take the combination, one more thing, I just want to say, you know, you do have what looks like infrastructure spending coming. I mean, there are things to be positive about this economy.
All right. So, Josh, Barclays says, quote, we see limited upside for equities from here as the spread of the Delta variant has increased global macro risks. Morgan Stanley cutting GDP forecast today, albeit slightly, 6.5 from 6.9. Some are asking, is this as good as it gets? And if it is, do stocks need a re-rating as a result of that?
So if you think about past periods of time where we had a very strong rebound off the bottom, and by the way, we've just had the fastest double for the stock market in history. When you think about 2010 versus 2009 as like one example, you got into a situation in the summer of 2010 where stocks started to sell off very violently, I might add, into August as people started to worry, okay, this is as good as it gets. The economic recovery off the lows in 2009 was really fast, too far, too fast. Valuations, blah, blah, blah. That was like one of the most buyable, obviously buyable dips of all time. And had you done that after that huge rebound during that consolidation period where the recovery was in doubt, you did very well. I think the market was like, the Dow was like 8,000 or 9,000 at that point. That's just one example of others that I could cite. I think it's really important that we just think about this year as a year where we consolidate a lot of the gains that we've already seen. So if the market were to finish right here, it would be one of the best years of all time. I accept the premise that Delta could cause another correction or a dip, 5%, 8%, 10%. Sure, why wouldn't that be possible? That could happen without Delta, I would add, by the way. So like if that's your max pain threshold, right, you can't hold stocks down 5 or 10%, arguably you're just in the wrong asset class because stocks will do that, and it would be very garden variety for us to see that. My personal opinion is we're going to get a lot of this Delta stuff out of the way on the timetable that Dr. Gottlieb laid out. I think the vaccine rates in areas that are hardest hit are now rising at a very rapid clip. I mentioned the Delta variant as being a silver lining to push people who are on the fence to go out and get vaccinated. And I think this fall, this winter, I think we're set up pretty nicely. The consumer is still very strong. A lot of the stocks people are worried about, Home Depot, this thing is 4% off an all-time high. Like, what do you want, right? This is a stock that's almost tripled, and it has a pullback because the news was really good, just not explosively good. Like, I think we need to get out of that mindset and focus on the big picture.
Well,
the big picture is corporations are doing massive buybacks. People's bank accounts are flush. People are going back to work in record numbers. There are job openings as far as the eye can see. Rates aren't going anywhere this year. And if you keep those things in mind, it's really hard to get overly bearish and think we're going to experience something way worse than a garden variety pullback.
I mean, Steph, you could look at Home Depot, and I'm sure you're feeling good that you got out of it when you did, even though you left some money on the table on the upside. I mean, you can raise the issue of whether the DIY trade, and that's what our Robert Hum on our news desk and our markets team has sort of put out there today. If you look at some of the stocks like Sherwin-Williams or, some of the other names, PPG, excuse me, that's the one I was trying to think of as well, along with Sherwin-Williams. You could say maybe we're at peak DIY or peak things that you do at home or maybe stay at home. You look at the performance of some of these other names, and you do wonder about that. I mean, Home Depot, it's not about what happened. It's about what's going to happen. And if you think that that whole trend is going to slow, then maybe those stocks need to be re-rated too.
Well, I don't own very many housing-themed names. Stanley Black & Decker is the only one that I own. It's kind of a special situation story. Look, Home Depot is in a lose-lose situation, right? I mean, the stock has just had a tremendous run, really high expectations. Comps last year were in the same quarter last year were up mid 20%. I've never seen such a thing, right? So really high expectations, really tough comparisons, and yeah, housing is definitely taking a breather. But I would say housing is taking a breather because there's no supply. And certainly affordability is on the rise. I mean, home prices are up median about up 18%. So I respect that. So that's why I don't own, though, a lot of housing names, because I think we've seen the peak in that particular part of the market, right? But let's just step back for half of a minute. And I don't have an answer for Delta. I listen to Dr. Gottlieb, and I look at the UK cases, and I look at India, and those cases are coming down. I have no idea about that. But what I can tell you, what I do know, is we should embrace the taper talk. There is no real need for emergency policy.